Hi, this is Jenny Walker, and welcome to Closet Conversations. Today, I want to talk to you about choosing merchandise for your store. The merchandise that you choose is going to help to create the look and feel. It's your branding. It's so many things. It's merchandise that you want to have to, service your local community, perhaps, or a certain segment of the community. Are you looking to be a plus size only shop? Are you looking to, have edgier styles for stylists and costumers and designers? Are you looking to have more conservative things because you have a more conservative crowd in your neighborhood? Are you in rural areas where it's important to have like a lot of denim and, cowboy boots and things like that? But what you choose is really going to be one of the most important aspects of defining your business. So in the case of Walker Vine Luxury Consignment, we thought long and hard about putting the name luxury in our name. We went through all kinds of things, and we asked ourselves, well, what is it that we're going to be doing? I mean, what market are we going to serve? And we knew we were going to focus on luxury goods, and so in the end, we said, well, we'll just put that name in our title. So instead of like Walker Vine or Walker Vine Consignment, we are Walker Vine Luxury Consignment. And so that should help people have an idea about what they're going to find before they even walk in the door or go online, because we're using the word luxury. So what is luxury? And how we are defining it are the luxury brands, the high-end brands, the ones that you can find in the high-end stores like a Saks Fifth Avenue or an Neiman Marcus, the Chanel's, the Louis Vuittons of the world, the Goyards, the Bottega Veneta, the Dior, the Fendi, the Prada, etc., etc. So when you understand who you're targeting, then it helps you decide what merchandise to take in. And, it's one of the most exciting and most potentially horrifying parts of my day is selecting the merchandise, because even though we have luxury in our name, and even though our website is very clear about the brands that we want, and even though people call me, they are always very hopeful that I'm going to take their things, even though they fall outside the parameters we've set for the store. And so, yeah, so anyway, I'm always turning away stuff, and I try to do it very politely, and I always refer people to other stores that I think might be more suited for their things, but they really, it's a lot more effort for them. It's a lot of trouble to have to go to another store, and, they try to, talk you into taking their things anyway. And, even if it has a big stain on it, I'm like, no, someone else can sell your Fendi dress with the big stain in the middle. I'll let someone else do that. And so, it's, and it's also, it's sort of like if you have a very specific or rigid guideline, it can work for you very well, because you always can say, we don't take Nicole Miller in our store, for example. It's not a brand that we take, something like that. And certainly when you define yourself by who you are and what you're looking for, it really helps you decide what to take in or not, because certainly that's going to give you a look and feel. So if you are geared toward, younger people, like college age, you're going to take in the brands that service that market, like Doc Martens or H&M or Forever 21 or things like that. If you are looking for a college age kid, or client, you might be looking at, a J. Crew or an Abercrombie and Fitch, something like that. If you're looking at, people who are older, have more disposable income, you might be looking at, let's say, a Halston Heritage or Dion von Furstenberg. But if you're looking at luxury, it's very, very clear what that is in my mind. And, even in the high-end department stores, they really separate the luxury floor from the not-so-luxury floor, or the, or, they have that special fifth floor on, in Bergdorf Goodman, for example, which, caters to a younger audience that I think they hope will then one day go to the third floor, where all the designer stuff is. At least some of it. I mean, they have designer things all over that store, but you can definitely tell the difference. You go on the third floor, you'll get Libertine, you'll get Alexander McQueen, the list goes on. And, Ann Demeulemeister, the just you'll get all the luxury brands on that floor, Dolce & Gabbana, etc. But if you go to the fifth floor, you're going to get a very different, you might get Alice and Olivia up there. You might get, Tahari, things like that. So in a sense, it's almost like having different stores in one. So if you're going to cater to luxury, you need the brands on the third floor. If you're going to cater to, mid-tier brands, you want the things that maybe they would carry on the fifth floor. So, it really helps you develop that look and feel for your store. And what we've tried to do is, it takes a while to get a whole store filled with luxury goods. It just, you're starting from scratch. You have no consigners, and you've got 1,300 square feet to fill up. It's going to take you a minute to get the right consigners. And by that, I mean the people who not only can bring you these designer goods once, that they can bring it to you again and again. So, it just takes a minute. So what we did is we combined merchandise that we already had through the Jenny Girls Closet, my resale store, to fill out our very empty space. And as we got consignments in and as the store filled up, we would take that merchandise out. And the merchandise, though, is very different than the merchandise that came in our community in Pasadena. We have a very tailored, ladylike, conservative, crowd there. And so it won't be a surprise to you that we had a lot of, Ferragamo come in, or, Chanel or Louis Vuitton, for etc., Bottega Veneta, versus, say, for example, a lot of edgier brands like Comme des Garçons or, Balenciaga, for example. So the kinds of things that have come in from the local community are just very different than these edgier pieces that we had in the beginning. And what it did was it gave a mix of it was interesting because people were saying, wow, it's like being on the West Side. I don't have to go to the West Side if I come in your store. And that was sure the case in terms of a lot of quote unquote West Side brands, meaning brands you can't get in Pasadena, were in our store. But that was an anomaly. That wasn't because that customer was bringing that to us. It was because we had it already and we're pulling it out as we got filled up with our Brooks Brothers and, St. John. And, it's just really interesting to see that. So, when people would bring in those edgier brands, and we would, of course, take them because we're luxury, and we weren't, when we're doing luxury, it was all luxury, edgy or not edgy, you still have luxury, correct? So, we had a mix, and what we found is that most of that edgier stuff was selling online. So we had a pair of black men's leather Christian Louboutin boots. Like they were crazy, like knee-high boots or something. They were just fantastic, and they were I think they had come from Barney's, the woman said. So it had never been worn, and they sold online for $2,000. It was an online sale, and the person was happy to get them. And I think originally they were $4,000 or $5,000 boots. And so, that was, a lot of this, like the Alexander McQueen, we had a lot of it sold online, and we were shipping it to DC. We were shipping it, to New York. And so, it was interesting to see where the edgier brands went. And while we did sell some in the local Pasadena community, it was mostly online. And so that told me that so much about the local community there, and that we were selling what I would call the more wearable pieces to the local market, and the funkier, edgier, more artistic pieces were being bought by people who were not local, or they traveled, or they was an online sale, or it went to another country, or perhaps it went to a costumer or a designer or someone on a design team. So, it's fascinating. So now we have all that stuff out of there. We no longer have any of that merch in there. And so what we're left with is, a tiny bit of edgy stuff, but mostly it's a more tame, toned down version of designer in the store. And so to keep that up and to keep that image up, if you will, and to keep that look and feel of the store when things come in, it's very easy to turn away things that are, particularly by brand. I mean, it's okay, we don't take Ellen Tracy, or okay, we're not going to take Dana Buckman, or we're not going to take Liz Claiborne. It's very easy just by brand to narrow out. But it's not an exact science, because I have oftentimes broken my own rules because something will come in and it doesn't fit their mold. It doesn't fit the rule. It's vintage. It's, in a class by itself, and it's just fantastic. And so just based on style is that other category where, we'll take things in. And we actually had a vintage, one-of-a-kind custom-made dress from England that came in from someone, and it was made in the 70s, and we had it, got it on the red carpet for the Costume Designers Guild Awards in February of 2018, and it was fantastic to have that dress, and it really was, the person who wore it just was a showstopper, and, that was really exciting. But here's the thing. When people found out where that dress was from, they thought we sold vintage. And it was so interesting because we don't sell vintage per se. We're not a vintage store. We're a consignment shop. So it was kind of interesting. We were thrilled that people saw the dress and they were excited to know where they got it. But we don't actually specialize in that. It was an anomaly. It was a one-off. So, so because it was successful, I looked for more of those special pieces. But it's not really what we're trying to do. We're not trying to be the vintage shop at all. We're trying to be modern, contemporary, luxury consignment with a sprinkling of fantastic things that are vintage, because you are always, always going to find things that fall outside of your guidelines. But, it's still important to understand what you're looking for. So you can rule it out by brand. You can rule it out by condition, so you bring in something that is a Prada or a Chanel, but it's just completely worn out. So you just, you rule it out because of the condition. The size, it's very difficult to sell a size 5 shoe, for example. The customer that can wear that is just, it's limited. So that might be an online sale for you, or it may be that random customer that walks in your store. But if you had to decline something on size, it might be that you don't want to carry these smaller size shoes, or you don't want to carry shoes that are too worn, or they have to be brand new in a box, or they can't be toe prints. You might want to say, well, I'm not going to carry large size, for example. You're not going to carry over, let's say, a 14. That's one way you could, rule that out. Now, we don't actually rule out things on size at all. We have a shortage of larger sizes in our store, and we just happen to not have much that's designer, that's the larger size, but we still have it. Like, we have some Eskandar that came in recency, some Marina Ronalde that's come in, and then just some of these designer brands have a 16, 14, 16 size. Some of them go up to 50, just depending on the brand, if they're European or not. So that's another way to slice and dice it. I think by color is another thing that you could do. We actually have this abundance of black in our store, and my business partner is always like, what's with all the black? And I actually am drawn to black clothes, I think, because I've been wearing it since college and spent so many years in New York City, where that's basically your uniform is the, black on black. So I don't really notice that it's overwhelmingly a lot of black clothes in there, but there actually are a lot. And so he's always saying, well, don't take in so many things just based on color, based on it being black. He says, look for color, look for, things that are exciting and that'll stand out in the store or look good on a mannequin. So, there's those parts of it as well. Perhaps there's things that you don't want to take. For example, we don't sell lingerie and obviously new with tags, but we don't want to sell nightgowns or things like that. And we have taken in one or two. When somebody brings you a Poochie nightgown, it's really hard to say no to that. But guess what? Didn't sell. So, it takes up space. And in terms of taking in what's selling, it's really interesting. We've run some reports on our software, and it tells you exactly what's sold. It tells you exactly the top brands. And it won't be a surprise if I told you that the Chanel brand was the number one brand in our store in terms of number of pieces and price point. That won't shock anybody. I think that's pretty much global. And Louis Vuitton was I don't know if that was second or third, but if we really went by the reports, it would be so helpful in terms of what to take in. And the other part of it too is we've said, okay, there's a certain amount of labor involved to process all of this. And so we don't want to take in anything that we can't price it at least $100. Okay, because on $100, if you had a 50-50 consignment split, if it sold at full price, that's $50, towards your store. And, you could, that's a nice amount. But if you're doing things that are, $10, $25, $30, $40 at the original price, I mean, you just don't, it's just too much work because it takes you just as much time to list, a $2,000 Chanel suit as it does a $20, t-shirt. And so one of the things we've done is to tell ourselves, okay, try not to take in anything that you can't price at least $100. Well, that is not an exact science because I don't always know exactly what I can price it until I get online and do the research after the fact. But, sometimes I do take it in and I'm like, okay, there's no way it's going to be 100. Maybe I can do 80. If I can squeeze $80 out of this thing that I've taken in because it was so amazing, right? And I do think that people don't want to see a store where everything's $100 and over. I think that they do want a variety of prices in there. But the point is to take in things that are going to garner the most amount of money for you. And it's better to have fewer things that sell for more at a higher price than a whole store full of stuff. And lately we have been really changing everything. I mean, I didn't take up almost anything in this week at all. I was turning away bags and bags and bags of stuff. I turned away gowns. I've turned away dresses. I've turned away all kinds of things this week because I'm like, this isn't what we do here. And I'm not going to be weak. I'm not going to bend to the beautiful convincing of the potential consignor to do it. Even today, I was like, you sure you don't want to take this in, even though there's a small stain on the front and it's been dry cleaned? I'm like, no, I'm not. No, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it. And I'm just not going to do it because then you have a reputation for things with stains, and that's not what we do. As a matter of fact, people can't believe this stuff is even used, so we are that picky. And so, as we downsize the number of items in our store, we've been able to get starting to get space between the hangers, and it's really starting to look like an upscale boutique, which is what we want. And, so it's going to take some time to turn it completely how we want, but we are definitely downsizing the number of items on the floor. That doesn't mean we won't keep things in our stock room, pull out as needed, because there's always something back there. I'm always pulling something out of the back that just came in or that we've put back there for some reason. It's like magic in the back, right? For our store and everyone else's. We've discovered that watches do not sell for us. And what I mean by that is, people have presented us some Gucci watches, some Michael Kors watches, for example. We had a number of Michael Kors watches come in our store, and nobody wants them. They don't want them for any price. They don't want them for any reason. We had a hard time moving a Burberry watch. We had a really hard time moving a Gucci watch. All of those were returned. We have one Chanel watch that is, probably going to be sold, but obviously it's because it's Chanel and it's an expensive watch. It's over $1,000. But these lower priced novelty watches, I'll call them, just don't do well in our store, so we're not taking them in anymore. So as a matter of fact, there's one returning to one of the owners. It's a Michael Kors, beautiful like white enamel watch, and we had a discussion. I said, okay, I'm going to put this on eBay clearance. If it doesn't sell, let's talk about a price. You're going to have to come pick it up and give it to someone else. So I just know there's no point in taking in any more watches at all like that. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of space, and there's no point in having it in there. Silk scarves, however, I could sell every day. I mean, who knew how popular these scarves were? Obviously Hermes, and we have all this vintage Gucci scarves that we sold. Someone brought in 4 of them. It was so interesting. They all sold at really good prices. And it was interesting. The other day I was watching the new Gucci fashion show, and there was the exact print in the vintage scarf that we had in our store, because they're recycling everything. And I thought that was fascinating. And of course, no wonder it sold. And of course, right now, everything Gucci is selling like hotcakes. It doesn't matter what it is, anything with logos. And so this is something to look for, like what's trending right now. And so right now, everything that has a logo on it, a Fendi logo, a Dior logo, a Chanel logo, anything logoed at all is hugely popular and just flying out of the door. And a lot of that has to do with the young people who are wearing this now. Someone actually told me that, and I didn't see it for myself, but they said Kim Kardashian wore an all Fendi outfit with Fendi, the F logo all over it. And I'm sure that's why it's part of the reason that all this stuff just sells out and is so expensive now. I actually saw on my favorite site, The Real Real, where Christian Dior had brought back that saddlebag. I actually own one, a black leather one with silver hardware. I just always held on to it. And they brought it back this past season. So all these old ones that you could pick up for like $150 are now like $400 or $500 on all these sites now. So what's it telling you is that you've got to watch the trends. You've got to see what's happening in the marketplace so you can, kind of capture that value in your item. Another good one, Judith Lieber. And sadly she's passed away as well as her husband. And before that, we had gotten in some Judith Lieber that just sold in seconds, literally the minute we put it up on eBay, because it was some of those rarer pieces. And I went online, I remember when I was doing all that, and I was reading about how the Lieber Museum was looking to find one of every bag that had ever been created to have in this museum to complete the set. So that was part of their mission. So you never know who's looking for stuff. I mean, the fact that there are Judith Lieber collectors, and there's also a museum who's trying to get every bag that's ever been made, really tells you that if you have a Judith Lieber bag, you should be pricing it accordingly. You should know that there is heavy demand for some of those pieces. Not all, because not all Judith Lieber is selling. It's almost hard to give away the belts. Nobody seems to be interested in our store. The suede bags will sell. The ones that are embellished will sell. But that classic, say, lizard or snakeskin bag just is a snooze fest for people. They're not interested in that yet. And I say yet because it's a beautiful bag. And when you're looking at things that are vintage, and again, we are not strictly, clothes only the last 5 years. No way. We are clothes. We'll go back to the 80s if it's interesting. And we've sold this stuff because some of it that survived is just fascinating and beautifully made. Things by Ferragamo, things by Valentino or Saint Laurent. I mean, these things that come in the store, and sure, they're not 5 years old. They're 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 if they're in an estate. And some of these things are in as good a condition as if you'd just bought them off the rack. And so, it's just always interesting to keep that in mind. In terms of collectors, I think what's interesting is that you've got to remember that people aren't always buying these things to wear. And this is the thing that I had to get into my own head, because I thought people only went in stores to shop, to put on their body and walk out and enjoy themselves. But it's not true. They're collectors, they're resellers, they're vintage shops. They're looking for things that are undervalued. And undervalued is a relative term. If I get $500 for a pair of pants that someone's going to resell for $1,500, well, $500 is a lot of money for a pair of pants that perhaps, someone has in a store for $50 because they don't know what it is. And so at some point along the line, either you're the store selling it for $50, or the store selling it for $500, or your store selling it for $1,500 when it's a vintage piece. You could be at any place in that spectrum. We aren't going to be the store that sells it for $1,500. That's just not what we do. But we will be the store who could sell something for $500, $600 that someone else will either wear or turn or flip it because that they're a reseller and that's something that they're looking for. Like these archival pieces, they're calling it now. There's no exact science, but you can set up criteria, and I suggest that you do. You come up with a list of brands, and you either stick to it, where you allow some wiggle room. You set up price points, sizes, types of goods you want to take in and those you don't. And you can advertise that and make sure that people have that in advance. You can refer them to your website and have it when you take in or field things over the phone. And that's it. That's just my take on how to choose items for your store. I hope this was helpful to you. It's just the latest in a series on how to open a consignment shop. I will say one more thing before I finish, which is if you're selling online, perhaps there's different criteria that you want for your items. Perhaps that you're looking for a customer that's not local, and that might broaden what you take in. It might narrow what you take in, but it is going to be a different set of criteria if that's what you're doing. So just keep that in mind, and think that through to see what will be best for your store. Again, this is Jenny Walker with Closet Conversations, owner of Jenny Girl's Closet, which is a styling and reselling operation, and co-owner of Walker Vidin Luxury Consignment in Pasadena, California. If you've liked this podcast, please give it a 5-star rating, a review. I'm very new with the podcasting, and all that'll help it, stay relevant and at the top of searches. If you want to get in touch with me, I'm on all social media. I also run a Facebook page called For the Love of Consignment, Resale, and Retail. We have over 1,000 members. And on that page, I share national, international, and regional articles on the industry you might find of interest. Thanks again, and I will talk to you next time on the next Closet Conversations.